welcome everybody to Navigating Change, the podcast from Teibel Inc. I'm Pete Wright. That's Howard Teibel.
Just back from Las Vegas, baby.
Viva Las Vegas.
I never know what you're going to give me back.
You want to go on,
I
baby?
won $138 in a slot machine, Pete.
Hey, hashtag IRS. There's got to be something to report.
Oh, you know, we're gonna delete this portion of the of the podcast. The machine was going crazy. Truly, the machine wouldn't stop, and I was so excited, but I realized that a big win on this was $2. So seriously,
because it was a slot machine. It was the
but it
old
literally
one-armed bandit.
Over. The woman sitting next to me said, "I never saw it do this. I thought I was going to be able to retire, and then it comes up $138." I'm like, oh well.
Did you summarily lose that $138? No, you kept it.
I pushed cash out, and I took my money, and I ran.
Good for you.
I know.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Then I blew it on the blackjack table. All right.
Hey, so you were in Las Vegas. You were in Las Vegas for the fantastic WACUBO conference, the annual meeting.
Fantastic. Oh, I mean, the first fantastic piece was I got to do the presentation with Kelly Fox, and we probably had over between 200 and 250 people. It was great. I mean, people were really saying they loved it. And my favorite part was that we were competing against the piercing and tattoo session, that was in the other room, and they thought we were going to be the boring session. So we were having lots of fun. It was it was a good time, and the content from our session continues to remind me how important this is, because people were having deep insights. Bill Dillon, who was the executive vice president at WACUBO, said he walked away from that very inspired, mostly because he realizes we really do need to find a way to get in there more closely with the academic side of the house and be working with them to solve some of these problems. And I think that being inspired about this and being hopeful, being optimistic is probably the number one mindset we have to have looking forward, because there's so many reasons to think it can't change. But I am fundamentally optimistic.
Oh, that's fantastic. A great opportunity again to speak with Kelly Fox, who, if you didn't get a chance to hear our pre-talk that we did with Kelly Fox, you can find that episode 51 a couple of weeks ago. We talked with Kelly Fox. You can hear a little bit more about the presentation that Howard and Kelly did before they actually did it. But you had, I got to say, I'm watching your Twitter. I'm like looking, I'm following you around, virtually stalking you. That's not a kosher term, but I was watching your stalking you professionally as you were at WACUBO, and you had some pretty transformational experiences, learning experiences yourself. And I thought this was a great opportunity to debrief not just your talk, which we've sort of done, but your experience at WACUBO. It seems like they put on a terrific show.
They really did, and I'll tell you something. What they did, which is not easy to do, is they had, at least for me, and I think for many people, two really great keynotes. Now, I was only able to attend these two just because of my schedule, but listening to Salman Khan, who told the story of how the Khan Academy came into being and what it is and where it's going, and then Zemsky, Professor Robert Zemsky, talking about what it means for this body of business officers to raise the bar and take responsibility for where the academic side of the house needs to go. But he did it in a brilliant way. I mean, let me start with him, because here's the subtle, almost could have gone over your head message. And one of the things he said, one of the key takeaways I loved at the end was, he said, listen, you guys, meaning this audience, you're in charge of the business of higher education. And to grow, to make changes, sometimes you have to spend money to save money. And he said, your faculty need help making the transition from the old model to whatever the new model is going to be. And to move from the way we've got these lecture halls filled with students to maybe the lecture halls filled with collaborative exercises or collaborative spaces and not the talk to sage on the stage model. But to do that, there's going to need to be some learning. And what he put out to the group was, how can you help them make this transition and think of it as an investment versus making speeches, which was great because there's so much out there where sides make speeches about the other side. And his point was simply, let's stop making speeches and get in there and say really fundamentally to the faculty, here, we want to help you. We want to help you, and this is why the business model is changing, and we know you can't do it alone. We will make investments, so work with us to make those changes. And I'm not so sure how many people walked away being inspired by that. My guess, those who are already doing it are the ones that were validated, and some, they're buried in the weeds, and some can't figure out how to engage their senior financial people. So I think they're all over the map on this one.
Senior financial people and senior academic people.
Exactly.
Right. I feel like they don't speak that language.
They don't speak that language. And his point to this group is you need to take responsibility for reaching across the aisle, think about it as an investment, and put money towards helping faculty make this transition. Isn't that great? Isn't that a great concept?
It's a great concept. I'm curious your take on, or if he talked about why it is so important for these financial people, these business officers, that the responsibility is in their court. Why does he, a PhD and the chair of the Learning Alliance at University of Pennsylvania, put this back in the hands of the business people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just love this overarching question that was part of his keynote. Are you going to be a bystander and observe, or are you actually going to become a partner who joins with the faculty in getting control over a curriculum that costs too much and leads to too few graduates? There you go. Done.
Yeah. Okay, so tie that into Sal Khan's conversation. It seems like this is kind of a natural model challenge.
Yeah. So Sal was first, and he got up there and did what was just he told a very personal story, starting from what it was like to tutor a cousin, a younger cousin, in math, and how that grew to other cousins, and then it turned into conference calls and webcasts, and then he decided to do a YouTube, and next thing he knows, it goes from 10 to 50 to 1,000 to 10,000 people watching his YouTubes, and then continuing to sort of live the world of being an investment banker, and at some point say, you know what, dear, maybe we should, I'm gonna give up that world, we'll dip into our savings, and I will start putting some attention around this. And, he went from tutoring his cousin to getting a $10,000 donation on the internet, which then turned into $100,000. And then he told the story of getting a phone call from Bill Gates' special assistant, and he's holding the phone to his ear and he's shaking like, is this really going to be Bill Gates? Who was in his conference talking about Sal Khan. And now they're in this world of not only delivering broad kind of learning to the masses, but they're taking on big questions like redesigning the SATs. Khan Academy is partnering with college boards to redesign and create, in a sense, the 21st century SAT that's going to have relevance. So what he did, which I found he made a number of distinctions. The one I loved is that, there's a lot. If I asked you, what's the value of a higher education? There's a lot of ways to answer that question. And he was very honest about the fact that, he's got little kids, and he wants, one of his favorite things in life he remembers was going through college and the experience of going through college. So, he's not one of these people that, even though he's got this hybrid model where he's saying, we should all go towards the online learning. He's not saying that at all. What he actually pointed to about college is three major value points, which was one, the learning and what it means to be a learner, and then for these institutions, how do you actually serve the learner? Two, for the learner, the whole socialization element of transitioning from being a young person to being an adult, and that process of being engaged on a campus in that way, or with peers face to face. And third, the value of a college education is the credentialing. And this conversation came up in response to a question that somebody asked: does Khan Academy have a plan to move into credentialing? And I was actually expecting him to say, we are looking at that, and one of the things we're going to do is hopefully then be recognized like a land-grant institution, and people would get hired into a profession as a result of going through Khan Academy training. He didn't say that. And whether or not that ever comes to be, that's secondary. I actually think he told what he knows. And what he knows right now is that his plan, or their plan, because they're a much bigger organization at this point, is to find ways to embed the way that they're teaching what they're teaching online, and having institutions embed the Khan Academy lessons into their curriculum so that it embellishes the credentialing, or that it actually transforms the learning for our existing kind of college campuses, as college campuses are looking for ways to save money. And part of it might be some of these introductory programs become things that people take through Khan Academy. He absolutely, he's sitting in some ways, my guess, on the sidelines, waiting for institutions to say they're ready to take that risk. But it's sort of a catch-22, because it does beg the question: what do you do with faculty who have years upon years of habit and discipline of delivering it a certain way, and how could Khan Academy fit into this? So I think bold leaders in existing institutions will find ways, and Khan Academy will grow in that way, because he's a very inspiring leader.
That's fascinating. And then, so when you look at what he's doing in this sense of shaking up the model of traditional education by using Khan Academy content as sort of input, how does that connect to Professor Zemsky's cry for business officers to help lead academics to lead that change themselves? Yeah.
Well, one of the concepts that I think applies to both is something that Salman said, which was his observation that the sea change shift that has to happen is the difference between covering material versus students learning material. If you just dig into that a little bit, the model of learning / teaching is basically students or professors making sure material are covered, and that there's a sequential way of doing it. We move people through it in chunks: freshman, certain age, sophomore. And the Khan Academy has actually created a model where the individual learning can be tracked. So he showed a chart where a particular class of 25 students, the professor could actually observe where students are excelling in different curriculum, moving at a self-paced range, and able to help those who need help in one area and let others continue to move along. And the model, for the most part, is professors covering material, and then students demonstrating their ability to get through that material. And either you do or you don't, and you get a grade. His is more demonstrating what does it mean to have the focus be on letting the learner progress at their pace. And shifting that is going to require investment. to what Zemsky's talking about. It's going to require investment to say, how do we do that well? Where do we do that? Do we consider some of our core curriculum, maybe some of our introductory economics? We could use Khan Academy to teach that, and then we could use that time for something else. But it's not going to happen unless business officers take the responsibility of saying, this is a priority, and we're going to help you through this, right?
Yeah, that's fascinating, and you know, it's sort of it takes this whole concept of a customer focused or service oriented educational model to I think its rightful next step, right? We tend to say, oh, we're definitely a service oriented institution because we've taken all of the services that we normally consider services, like you don't have to wait in line to register, you can do a lot of stuff online, you can pay your bill with a credit card, you can do things, there's lots of restaurants on campus, you can do things that are considered customer servicey, but we've never really effectively or fundamentally tackled academics, which is arguably the most important customer interface in an educational institution.
Pete, that reminds me of something that Robert Zemsky said about the existing model of how colleges operate, and the analogy he was using was to a restaurant. And he said something to the effect of, imagine owning a restaurant in which all the customers could order anything they wanted that they could imagine, and all the cooks could cook anything they wanted to cook, and you still had a business model that could work. And everybody's sitting there in the room. We're sitting there. And I would imagine that if anyone's paying attention, they realize, well, some of them are going, it's not that bad. But his point is that we have to get that conversation under control. We need to have a thoughtful conversation about what should we be cooking, right? What should we be offering, as opposed to trying to serve everybody's needs. So I think between Salman Khan's perception and actual demonstration of offering up powerful learning models, and he gave some remarkable examples, how he's transformed people's lives. People in the audience, Pete, were getting up and thanking him during the Q&A because their daughter, one particular person, the daughter was dyslexic, and she's now teaching math. And when she was young, she couldn't do this at all. But endless. This is the kind of impact he's having. So, to me, the work that the message that Zemsky had, take responsibility and get in there and help them, make some investment, and Sal's message of we're doing it. And how can we integrate some of our ways of working into your existing structures? I think it was a brilliant juxtaposition.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What great lessons to come out of Las Vegas. Who would have thought that kind of genius coming right out of Las Vegas?
Right out of Las Vegas. I'm going back. The site was excellent. The leadership was fantastic. And this was my first WACUBO, so I was very impressed, just like I was with WACUBO and WACUBO, which I've been going to for years.
Well, this is great. So glad that you're doing this tour. It's national tour of the Kubos.
The Kubos, exactly. And I'll tell you what's great. I'm not sure if you know this, but and anyone who's been involved in this, the national organization really came out of these. The regions have been around a lot longer than the national.
Right.
And the national is, there's also this wonderful thing going on right now there too, is that this national organization is finding a way to really offer greater value to the regions. So for example, my presentation is a demonstration of trying to do something consistent about all of them. But the national is also helping manage more of the logistics in some of these situations. And I'll tell you, I think it's proving to be an even greater partnership between the regions and the national. Not easy to do that well, but I can tell you from a customer perspective, from an attendee perspective, I think it shows up as an extraordinary program.
That's wonderful. Do you have any more of these, or have you now finished this year's cycle?
Well, actually, no. There's two more. I've done WACUBO and WACUBO.
WACUBO.
the Central or WACUBO, actually, Gail Gregory from our group is going to be partnering with one of the business officers there, and we're really excited about that. And then after that, it's eCubo in October, and we'll be coming back for that. And then at the national meeting, the wonderful thing is we're going to be giving the same topic presentation around communicating effectively, but again, to the national audience, we'll be using some business officers for that. So this is a topic that has high resonance for the audience.
Clearly,
it's really a lot of fun to do.
That's wonderful. Well, Howard, thank you so much for your time recapping your trip to Vegas. So appreciate your time and wisdom there. You can find out more about this show if this is your first time. Welcome. Head over to TeibelInc.com. You can listen to all of our past episodes there. Subscribe to the show. Just search for Navigating Change in iTunes is the easiest way to do it. You make sure you don't ever miss an episode. On behalf of Howard Teibel, I'm Pete Wright. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week on Navigating Change, the podcast from Teibel Inc.